What is up, guys? This is Quincy Carrier here, and I'm here again for another episode of Q&A where I take your questions from Twitter and YouTube and answer them here on the show. And like always, if you want to ask a question via Twitter, follow me on Twitter. The link is in the description down below. And if you want to ask the questions here on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and get notified so you can be notified when I post on the community tab asking for those questions. But without further ado, we're going to jump right into it, and we're going to do it with Giants Nation, who says, "What's up, Quincy? Hope you're having a good day. My question is, what do the Cowboys now do with Dak? Do they let him play his last year now that there's going to be bad blood between him and the Cowboys, or should they pay him or let him walk?" They honestly should pay him. I don't know what the Cowboys are doing. Like, you have a franchise quarterback, you pay for a franchise quarterback. That's how it goes in the NFL. But for whatever reason, Jerry Jones seems to think he's above, what everybody else in the NFL has done. And Dak Prescott is most certainly a franchise quarterback. And I would argue, and I know a lot of people think favorably of Tony Romo now that he's a broadcaster, but if we remember the player, Dak Prescott was way better than Tony Romo was as a quarterback. So what's the problem here? Why haven't they paid him? I don't want to hear this. Well, Dak think he's the best, highest paid quarterback in the league when he's not the best quarterback, whatever. Kirk Cousins was the highest paid quarterback a few years ago. Jimmy Garoppolo is in the top 5. There's no reason that Dak Prescott doesn't have his contract right now, other than stubbornness and Jerry Jones believing in Dallas Cowboy exceptionalism, which is stupid. But that's my answer for you, Giants Nation. I hope you have a great day as well. Next question comes from Carter Joff Tobert. I hope I pronounced that right. What's up, Quincy? My question for you is, with the addition of veteran ADRIAN CLAYBORN, do you feel like there's more confidence in our defensive line? Also, do you like Claiborne as a veteran presence in the locker room? That's more along the direction of what I've been wanting some of these late free agency pickups to be. Now, I understand it's hard with everything that's going on. You can't really meet face-to-face with people, but, ADRIAN CLAYBORN is a way there. I don't think he solves the problem on the defensive line. I think the problem on the defensive line is in the lack of size that they have in the middle, and the lack of dedicated run stoppers that they have on the roster right now. That still has not really been addressed to any level that I'm happy with on that. But I do like ADRIAN CLAYBORN as a veteran presence. This is a guy who's been to a Super Bowl, 31 years old, young enough to contribute, but old enough to know a little something and add to the locker room. So yeah, I am there's really no downside. Well, there's limited downside to signing a guy like ADRIAN CLAYBORN because he's not going to break the bank. So, it's along the direction of what I want to see from the front office, but not all the way there, if that makes sense. The next question comes from Got Lumps for You Paintball, who says, "Hey, Quincy, will the Browns have trouble re-signing Nick Chubb, considering Baker and Denzel will be up for new contracts at the same time, considering Hunt is waiting in the wings on a cheap contract?" Well, Kareem Hunt, unless he continues to get in trouble, and even if he does continue to get in trouble, I just don't see where his future is going to be with the Browns past like the next 2 years, maybe. So by the time those contracts are ready to be up, I don't think Kareem Hunt's going to be in the picture, because if he has a great year, he handles himself well, he's going to get paid by somebody that's going to want to pay him, and that's not going to be the Browns. And if he doesn't have a good year and he falls into more trouble off the field, then he's probably going to end up out the league. So I just don't see a future where Kareem Hunt's going to be on the team past this year, where it makes sense. Now, the reason it doesn't make sense is because Nick Chubb and Myles Garrett both come up after this year. They're going to be in their contract season, so you're going to want to extend one or both of them. And then again, as you said, Baker and Denzel are also going to come up. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Nick Chubb there specifically, because if Baker is who we think he is, he's going to get extended, no problem. And if Myles continues to play like Myles Garrett, he's going to get paid handsomely by the Browns. I have no doubt in that. The big question mark comes to Denzel Ward and Nick Chubb, two positions that, there's varying schools of thoughts on how essential those two positions are. Next question comes from Billy Moss, who says, do you realistically see the Browns ever winning a Super Bowl with this ownership? Yeah, it can happen. I mean, bad owners win Super Bowls. Like, I understand that I have to call out when the Browns ownership is terrible. That doesn't mean the team's always going to be terrible just because I think the ownership is bad. It just means that as far as building a dynasty and winning 6 rings, being the Patriots, yeah, I don't think that's happening. But winning one individual Super Bowl, dude, that's totally possible. Bad franchise, bad ownership win championships all the time. They do. It's just a fact. The Browns wouldn't be the first one. They won't be the last one. So, yeah, if they can win a Super Bowl with Jimmy Haslam, anybody can win. Washington can win a Super Bowl with Dan Snyder. It's not unheard of. Art Modell won a Super Bowl after he proved he was one of the worst owners in NFL history. So, yeah, Jimmy Haslam can do it. I mean, he's better than Art Modell. The next question comes from the Big Hurt, who says, do you think the Steelers will be competitive in the AFC North this year? Defensively, they're top 5, but that offense, it isn't great. I know that they're getting Ben back, but he's older and has not played in nearly a year. Now, I've had this conversation with Steeler insider Tony Serrano. He's also on the AFC North Talk channel, where we talk about the AFC North weekly with me. So if you want to check that channel out, hit the subscribe button down there. The link will be in the description. But yeah, the Steelers are in trouble because it's not just that, hey, look, Big Ben, he could, push this offense to something, but there's no guy on that offense if it's not Big Ben. There's no driving force. Juju Smith-Schuster proved that, he's not a guy who's going to carry an offense. We can say, hey, he didn't have the quarterbacks behind him, but if you're a wide receiver that can carry an offense, similar like a Josh Gordon in 2012, it don't matter who's throwing you the ball if you're that kind of guy. He's a supplemental guy. He's a guy in a good offense can help put you over the top, but he ain't going to carry you anywhere. James Conner, woefully disappointing last year. And then past that, what do you got? Deontay Johnson, maybe, but he's still developing. He's not there yet. He's not Antonio Brown. So yeah, what they got on offense? Even if Ben comes back and Ben is half of what he was, what do they have on offense for him to work with? This is a serious question. He's throwing to James Washington and Juju Smith-Schuster, who both didn't have 1,000 yards last year. And if you compare that to a team like the Browns, who were very disappointing through the air, they still had 2 1,000-yard wide receivers. I just don't see it for the Steelers as far as their offensive production. I think they have a good defense, but if the defense keeps having to be put out there because you have just an incompetent offense and you're losing depth on the offensive line, you're getting older, what are you going to be able to do? So yeah, that's a huge question for Pittsburgh. Even with Ben coming back, what are they going to do? How are they going to move the ball? Do they have the pieces? This was one of the best offenses on earth 3 years ago when they had Le'Veon, Antonio Brown, and Big Ben, who was still playing at a high level. Now you kind of got Ben. I don't know what they're going to do. The next question comes from Robert Moore, who says, hey, Q, does a Trent Williams trade make sense for the Browns? Yeah, if they give him to us for a 6 or 7 round pick, sure, why not? But I'm not trading a second, a third, and I'm not even going to mention a first round pick because that's just ridiculous. A 4th or 5th. I'll trade you a 5th in 2021. So you have to wait a year to get that upgrading round. But if you think you're going to get anything more than a 2021 5th for Trent Williams, who has not played in 2 years, does not want to play for your organization and has more question marks on him than any college essay I got graded back, then you're insane. Because right now it looks like Dan Snyder wants to charge the Browns 2016 Trent Williams prices for 2020 Trent Williams. And we ain't doing that. They better not do it. So the next question is from America's Underdog, who says, if you were the Browns GM, would you try to draft somebody primarily with left tackle experience, Thomas, Jones, etc., and keep Conklin at his main spot, or get the best tackle available and switch Conklin to left tackle? I'm going to say something, and it might not be received well, but I see a lot of people really obsessing over who's going to play left or right tackle in 2020. To those fans, I want to tell you to relax, because right now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. Because here's the reality of the situation. Jack Conklin's paid $20 million. If the Browns want him to play left tackle, they're paying him to play left tackle. And, he can obviously stay on the right side, which is fine. He can also go on the left side because he's better than whatever left tackle the Browns have on the roster right now that isn't in jail. So, yeah, can Conklin switch to left tackle? Obviously. Now, if they get, Jedrick Wills, who plays right tackle technically, but he's to his blind spot, if they want to play with which one gets to play right or left tackle, honestly, they can. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. That's not going to be determined until training camp, if there is a training camp. But that's not going to be determined until training camp. So I'm not going to focus and obsess over who's playing left or right tackle, or assume who's going to play left or right tackle, because it doesn't matter right now. Kevin Stefanski and Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach, will figure that out. What makes the most sense? Is this player, athletic enough, or does it make enough sense to put him here, or do we want to put the veteran in at left tackle and put the other guy? The reason they signed Jack Conklin is not just because they had a hole at right tackle. It's also because they wanted flexibility. And you can tell that because they restructured Chris Hubbard's deal, not immediately cutting him, because they still want to hold on to some flexibility in the draft, and good on them. Because if you're stuck at 10 with like the fifth best left tackle, and you got somebody like Derek Brown on the board, you'd be an idiot to not take Derek Brown and take your fifth ranked tackle. So, you got to keep your options open with the draft. I don't know who's going to play left or right tackle, but Conklin can play either side at a good enough level. So, I just wouldn't obsess over it. The next question comes from Timothy Napier, who says, "Sup, Quincy, love the content, Bubba. My question is about the offensive scheme that Kevin Stefanski is bringing to the team. Do you think the outside zone is exactly what Baker needs to continue to progress into an elite quarterback he is capable of being? I appreciate you, boss. Keep up the fantastic work." Thank you, man. I think it's more along the lines of what Baker Mayfield's good at. So if that is what you mean by developing into the elite quarterback, yeah, I think it plays to his strengths. Baker Mayfield didn't do so well in that last offense he was in for multiple reasons. This seems like a return to what he was good at his rookie year. Now, was 2019 more about some holes that were exposed in his game more than it was about the offense? Well, we'll find out this year. And that is the big question going into 2020 that has to be answered. Yeah, I think the new offense will do numbers for Nick Chubb. I think it's going to do great things for the offense in all. And I hope it helps Baker Mayfield develop into a more consistent, less turnover-prone quarterback, because ultimately to run this offense, you're going to require him to throw less interceptions, tipped ball interceptions or not. there's still turnovers, so you need them to cut it down. But thank you for the question, man. Next question comes from Damion Kelly, who says, do you think not trading OBJ and keeping our pick in Jabril and then drafting A.J. Brown would have been a better alternative than what we got last year? So no, I wouldn't take the trade back. I don't think the Browns would have been better off if they didn't trade for Odell. I think Odell is going to be better for this team's future, and I don't think they gave up anything that's game. Like, what have you heard of Jabril Peppers since he's gone to New York? Has anybody missed him? He's just average, strong safety play, So yeah, I would say, even knowing how last year went, I would retake the trade and do it all over again, just because I feel like a lot of the issues last year had nothing to do with OBJ and had more to do with John Dorsey and Freddie Kitchens and whatever was going on inside of Berea between him, Jimmy Haslam, and Paul DePodesta. So that's kind of my answer. I don't know if that's hitting what you wanted. That's the only way I can figure to answer it. But thank you for the question. The next question comes from Quincy Jones. Interesting. Who says, how effective will Stefanski's offense be against AFC North opponents? That's a hard one. That is a hard one because minus the Bengals, that might change. They signed DJ Reader in the offseason who might make a difference there. They still have Geno Atkins, but minus the Bengals for certainty. Both of the other teams in the AFC North have very strong defensive lines and serviceable linebackers. For the Ravens, it's more of a question mark because they lost a few players in that department. For the Steelers, it's more of a given. Devin Bush is there. He is certainly a good linebacker. So I worry about this offense not being the greatest fit, but then I look back at what Kyle Shanahan was able to do against arguably as impressive defensive lines when he was in Cleveland, and it didn't seem like that was a problem. So I'm not worried about it having success. My biggest thing about this offense is one, and people give me some flack and some pushback on this, but Baker Mayfield threw a lot of interceptions both years of his career. You can argue if those are tip balls or if those aren't, but the end of the day, they're turnovers. And Baker Mayfield does tend to turn over the ball a lot. He fumbles it sometimes. He throws interceptions. It's just he does it at this point of his career. Does that offense work if your quarterback turns the ball over a lot? Does that offense work if you're going to have to pass the ball more because you have the weapons that you have? Does that offense work essentially with the tweaks that the Cleveland Browns roster is going to require it? That is another question, because if you look at San Francisco, they had all role players, skill players. Emmanuel Sanders was the best wide receiver. They had an undrafted guy as the running back. So, with role players, it works fine. Now, we've seen them have success with star players in Atlanta. But with one in Julio Jones, and it's not really hard to draw up things for Julio Jones, but I'll say that with a grain of salt because I saw what this coaching staff did last year in Cleveland. So, yeah, I don't think it's the division that's going to be the problem. I think it's wondering about if this offense is going to be able to serve the needs that this roster needs to have filled, if that makes sense. That's what my concern is for the Browns. Not saying that I think it's a negative, but just saying, like, if you're asking me what keeps me up at night about the coaching change and the new offense, that would be one of the things that does keep me up at night. But thank you guys for the questions, and thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. Do you think that this offense is going to be a perfect fit for Baker Mayfield, or do you worry about some of Baker Mayfield's what he showed as far as turning the ball over and this kind of fitting with a very run-heavy offense. Do you worry about that? Is there something about the 2020 Browns that keeps you up at night that you don't think anybody else is talking about? But thank you guys for watching. Have a great day and have a good night.